Welcome to Chase's Everything Shooting. Today's episode is the 2024 update on primers and powder and really what's going on. We're not going to get too in depth. We're going to talk about pricing and different things like that and a little bit of inventories, but we're going to kind of go over a broad view. And then here coming up in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to definitely have a real deep dive. So let's get to it. Today's episode, I'm kind of titling it as Hear No Evil, See No Evil, and Speak No Evil. Okay, first of all, there are a lot of reloaders and shooters that don't want to hear about what's going on in our industry. And I'm kind of using that as hear no evil. And the second, the shooters and reloaders only want to see the bad. Well, I'm using that as see no evil. And the third is I won't speak any evil about our industry. I'm going to kind of tell you what's going on, what I see, and what's coming. And hopefully you can make the decisions on what's important to you. And across the board, primers have been an issue getting them. And then the pricing has gone through the roof. And we've all been out there and we've been to the gun shows and your local retailers and online trying to find our primers. Now, all of us that are reloaders and really kind of heavy shooters, most of us are reloading. And it's gotten to a point where it's been really hard to find primers. And so we've all kind of adapted a little bit, I think, to when you see them and they're close to a reasonable price, you snap them up as fast as you can. I went to my local gun store and talked to them, and they're the store I buy most of my firearms from. And they said, we get very little of those shipments in. And when they do, they come in and they go out very quick. And I will tell you, they're not cheap. They're probably 20% higher than what I can find online. But by the time you add freight and the extra cost in that freight being hazardous, it kind of gets a little crazy. So sometimes it's probably smarter for me to buy them directly from them than it is online. But we're going to kind of be going over that. Our domestic primers really have been just almost non-existent. And, that's been for the last few years. This was happening before COVID hit, but after COVID hit, it definitely changed the powder and primer market. So let's kind of get into what's happened and we'll kind of go through it. And then at the end, we'll kind of have more about powder and more about what possibly may be coming. So let's look at large rifle primers. Large rifle primers back in 2019 were $35.95 per thousand. Today, on 2024, $89.99 for 1,000. Now, what I did is I took an average of the 5 retailers that I could find. Now, that's online. That's also here in my city, in my town. And I kind of averaged them out. Some were super high. Some were low, but they had no inventory. So I used the top 5 that had a somewhat of an inventory. And what I mean by somewhat, that means that they said that they could ship within 24 hours. So I'm going to say they had some inventory there. So if you look at that on just the large rifle primers, that's a 150% increase from 2019. Holy moly. Now, I don't know how many of you are shooting large rifle primers. I'm guessing if you're hunting and you're reloading, then you're into the large rifle primers. The largest amount of primers going out, from what I understand from one of the primer manufacturers, is the small pistol primers. And in 2019, small pistol primers were $37.95 per thousand. In 2024, they were $89.99 per thousand. Again, I used the same criteria as I did before on the top 5 retail outlets that had them. And so that goes to show that in small pistol primers, they've gone up 137%. That's a pretty big jump. Now let's go to large pistol primers. Those that shoot the old 45 ACP, a lot of the older shells use the larger primer. So we're going to go to that one real quick. And in 2019, they were $55.95 per thousand. 2024, they're $99.95 per thousand, again, on the average. That's a 79% increase. And you all may be kind of wondering, well, why is there a difference in the increase? Well, from what I'm hearing, because the small pistol primers are really, they're wanted more than most of the other primers, that's why they've raised the price up on those. Am I saying it's right? No, I'm not going to say that. I'm just saying that's what's happening. Now, I do want to throw in the shot shell primers for those of you that are skeet shooters and trap shooters and do a lot of reloading of shot shells. In 2019, the primers were $29.95 per thousand. In 2024, they're $69.95 per thousand. That's a 133% increase. Yeah, that's big. That's huge. Well, are there that many of those primers being sold? Well, from what I'm hearing, yeah, there are. Well, okay, we know that trap shooters and skeet shooters, there's a lot of reloading that they do because they're competition and that's what they're doing. But there's not that many of them compared to pistol shooters, hunters, and large pistol shooters, large pistol primer shooters. I'm sorry. So, there's a lot going on there. And so, can I tell you that things are great? They're not for the shot shell primers, but there's more inventory of those that I can see than most of the others. So, I'm kind of looking at this and trying to figure out, well, what's this really telling? And this is really telling us that there's more demand than there is supply. And when that happens, we know what happens. The price just starts creeping up and keep going up and goes up. Now, is the demand that high, or is it the economy that's driving it? Well, I think it's both. I think the economy's driving it because we have such high inflation rates. And in some states, $6 a gallon, $6.25 a gallon. Other states, you've got, $2.60, $2.80 a gallon for regular gas. So, there are some differences, and we've seen that happen go up with the inflation. So I think there's some inflation in there, but I think there's a lot of demand in there also. Some of the positives I have to say is that we have 2 new primer manufacturers in the United States. One is White River, and they are in Arkansas. The other one is Ferrucci, who built a plant in Arkansas also, and their goal, when I've talked to them and gotten some information back, is they're building primers to fill in the market. They're saying that those aren't going on the retail market, they're going on the manufacturing side of the market. So that might free up some of our other domestic primers in order for us to get them retail. Who really knows? I don't know. We're trying to figure this out, and we're all kind of in the same place. Now let's talk about gunpowder. And gunpowder is one of those things where it's gone through the roof, it's gone down, there's no inventory. Well, right now I'm seeing a little bit of inventory, which is very, very good. Now, is it a wide range of inventory of all the different powders? No, there's some that are definitely out there that there's a little more inventory. Some of them may be the powders we don't use a lot of. So I'm kind of watching that myself, and that'll be in my next report of kind of going through that and what's happening in that market. But let's just look back to a 1 pound container of 700X. It is discontinued, and I do know that, and I do realize it. There are a few retailers that have some 700X left. Now, I would have thought that would have gone out as soon as they said no more 700X. But I kind of think that the reloader and shooter kind of said, well, if I have to change, I'll figure out when I'm going to change to, and I'll just make the change. So they had a little bit of inventory on that. So in 2019, I purchased a pound of 700X for $23.95. And in 2024, whatever retailer has a little bit left, it's $29.95. So I think they're trying to kind of push it out the door, trying to kind of make it get rid of it because it is going to be totally obsolete. It is obsolete. It is obsolete. So that's kind of the 700X. Now, the 1 pound container of Bullseye. Bullseye is a great kind of all around. And in 2019, $27.95 for a pound. And in 2024, $47.99 a pound, which is a 41% increase. Not too bad, but you know what? Again, what's happening? Is there enough inventory? When I started doing the research for this post, inventories were very, very low. And a lot of the online said that it may be 4 to 9 weeks. If we placed a order, it would be on back order. So kind of thinking that it's kind of a few in, a few gone, a few in, a few gone. So we'll have to see on that. Now, the other thing I purchased in 2019 was an 8 pound container of Red Dot. I use Red Dot a lot because I use it on my shot shells. It's very uniform, and it really is one of my favorite powders for my shot shells. And in 2019, I paid $153.95 for an 8 pound keg of it. In 2024, it's $269.95. Yeah, that's a pretty good increase, 76%. But again, with powders, it's getting harder and harder to find them. And are the favored powders out there? It's hard to get. It really, really is. So you kind of have to start being smart about your reloading and looking at alternatives that are there and working through those are alternatives. Wow, can't speak today. And trying to make that work with your mixture, your primers, and what you load and the accuracy that you want. Now, one of the things that's really come to my attention, and a couple of subscribers have put it in, is that 1 pound containers aren't 1 pound anymore. And I'm not going to go over manufacturers. I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to say you need to look at the containers and see, because there are a lot of containers out there that are still in that same 1 pound container, but you're only getting 14 ounces. Now, in the calculations that I did for this, I didn't calculate per ounce or anything like that, but you have to know that if it's 14 ounces, you're 2 ounces short. And so, really, the per ounce price or gram price or however you calculate it would be up a little higher. So, that's something to think about also. So, make sure when you're out there shopping or you're online that you look and make sure that it's either the 14 ounce or it's the true 16 ounce pound. Now, you know what? There's a lot of things happening in the gunpowder industry, and a few episodes back, probably about 6 or 7, I talked about the wars affecting that and what's going on, and we're starting to really see that come to fruition. And talking to a manufacturer, a huge manufacturer of gunpowder, they had kind of mentioned that they're going to be shrinking their amount of powders. So instead of having 50 different powders, they're going to start shrinking that down because they want to be able to manufacture more gunpowder and get more out on the market, but having to manufacture all these different 700X and Red Dot and Bullseye and Unlimited and Target and all those, those take different formulations and there's different burn rates. There's a lot of difference to that. But you know what? They're having to get smart and saying, hey, if we've got this much nitrocellulose to make our gunpowder, I want to make these gunpowders, not these gunpowders. So look forward coming up. We're going to start seeing more and more discontinued items out there. And you know what? We're all just going to have to get smarter because we're going to have to experiment. And that's what change is about. Change is, it's always going to be there. So I know there's a lot of us that are stuck in our way. I mean, I love Red Dot. If I got to change from Red Dot, I got to go out and figure out what I'm going to change to. If I'm going to change from 700X, which I had to change, I had to go out and find a new powder. So you're going to have to do some experimenting. But you know what? That's part of what we do, and that's part of what we enjoy doing as reloaders and shooters. So I thank you for watching. Please subscribe and like. We know that Google's playing some games with the algorithms, so please do like and subscribe.